All right, here we are again with another roll reveal. This one is number 551. It is a 1944D Lincoln cent roll. Let's see what we have in here. Okay, it looks like a relatively clean looking roll. All right, time to dig in. See what we have. Sissy, coin number 1. Come on, let's hope for the really good stuff. Could possibly turn out to have a couple of different OMMs possible here. Let's see. Trying to get the lighting situated for these. There we go. Okay, nothing on the eye. Nothing on that section of trust or on Liberty. Let's check the reverse. 44D is known to have some double die reverses, so we will be taking a look at a share of these, see what we see. And this coin, our first one in the roll, turns out to be normal. Number 2 now. Mr. Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, get this coin. And this one is normal on the obverse. Check the reverse real quick here. No, nothing on the reverse of this one. So that's now 2 coins. Let's check number 3, Calipigian. Nice sharp looking coin. No mint mark doubling. Yeah, hang on, okay. Let me be quite sure of that. Okay, I am. No mint mark doubling. Nothing around the eye. Nothing on the rest of the motto. And a little flake of plastic on the coin there. I just got that off for you. And so, check the reverse. A little bit of a fold over lamination there. Got another little flange issue going on here on the rim. Just nifty little things that don't really have a ton of value. They're just kind of cute to look at. And we've got nothing else on this particular coin. So, Calipigian gets a normal coin, number 3. Coin number 4 now for Farm Dog. And Farm Dog pulls. Yeah, it's another apparently normal date and mint mark area. Rather late die state obverse on this one. Let's check the reverse here real quick. That is somewhat interesting. That is very interesting. You have that is not scratches. That is a streak of colored metal that runs through the coin. Let's see if we have any more of that. No, just those couple. This one down here. And then this. It's a different color from other parts of the coin. It's not a scratch. You notice it doesn't skip or jump at all right here, so a scratch would. It's also not three-dimensional, even though it kind of looks like it just a little bit. It's not. It's flat to the surface of the coin. That is a color shift, whether it be by environmental exposure, or I'm looking for more of it, see if we see more. It's either by environmental exposure or improper alloy in the planchet itself. We don't have a die variety on this one, though. So that much for Farm Dog. Let's see what we come up with next here, Mark. And Mark's coin. Okay, I don't see any doubling on the mint mark, but the 9 is interesting. It looks like it could have a little bit of class 6 thickness. Let's check for the convex outer edges of the digits and date, or the lettering in other areas. It's a little hard to tell from there because it's very poorly struck. I'll have to go with a no until we can find a different example of this die that will show us better what we are trying to see, or make sure that we're not subliminally inventing things in our head to throw into these coins. We need to make sure that it's actually there. All right. So it turns out that it's probably a nothing, but I'm not 100% on that. Sand Digger comes up next. Got my fingers too dry. It is possible. Sand Digger's coin is nice earlier die state, but it doesn't have a die variety on it. Not the I'm sorry, it doesn't have a mint mark variety. We don't know about die variety overall until we look at the entire remainder of the coin. Not seeing anything here that's special. We do have just a little bit of a class 6 distended hub doubling going on here, but I don't know that this is going to be enough to really warrant listing it. If it happens to already be listed, then it's something that we will work with. If it doesn't already happen to be listed, generally the really minor stuff, we just skip it. That probably means that someone else has also probably done the same thing. Recognize that it would officially be a die variety, but skip it over because it's just too minor to mess with. I pulled this one off to the side anyway, just to be sure. Give Eric a first-hand look at it. There's a coin for Jordan here. And this one's a very late die state. Very difficult to see, even less than minor doubling. Nicer doubling is actually kind of hard to see sometimes in the very late die state coins. So minor doubling is nearly impossible to see in these later die states, and that's what this is. So even if there is some little minor doubling on here, it would be almost impossible to see. Malcolm now. Let's see what Malcolm pulls. If it's any consolation, I'm seeing repetition of the same dies over and over again. I'm just not finding any die varieties of mention, which means it's likely the roll wasn't picked through. It's just that the roll was normal when it started. and it's still normal today. We haven't been all the way through it yet. We're only 8 coins in, so we could still find more goodies. Larger curve to the E in we with the master hub doubling of the year. You can email me about whatever you need to email me about, Ant. That's not a problem, sir. Let's discuss for a moment your question so I can get a good idea of what you're talking about. We have another 1944D here. Now, if it's something that's normal for the master die doubling, you're going to see it on this coin. So, as we pull up here to the E, this is a very late die state coin. It might be very difficult to tell. Are you talking about this upper area up here where you would see a curve on the top of it and maybe a curve down here? You asking if that's normal? If that's the question, it is normal to have just a little bit of it. Yes. Kind of like the outside of the B right there has just a little bit of extra curve. You can tell that these all have just a little bit of that taffy pull curve. And the reason for that is because of the die state in this particular case. These outside edges of the letters just tend to stretch out a little bit more with the die state, the later die state. That's also a mark of a distended hub double die. The difference being one will always have thickness and the other one will not necessarily have any extra thickness. So the double die is always going to have some thickness to it. These coins turn out to be nice, but very average. 1944 Ds. Never know when you get into one of these rolls. It could be a blockbuster or it could be a backbuster. This one is not producing anything of high quality special merit. There, so you're talking about that, Ant. Right here, this little part right here is almost always curved like this, as is the center. Now the top up here on normal coins is going to be rather straight. But if it's curved, if it's heavily curved, it's also going to be a double die. But it'll only be heavily curved if there's extra thickness to it, and you'll be able to notice that. So the curve isn't as important as the thickness. But a curve in the outer part of the E on we is going to tell you that it probably is a double die. Where did my coin go? Here it is. Another case of machine doubling here. You can see how the doubling is very flattened down toward the field. It looks like there was a punch that flattened another punch, and that's exactly what happened here. Those punches happened a millisecond apart from each other, bam, bam, just like that. But it was enough to punch that doubling into the coin. Of course, the difference between this doubling and a double die is that on a double die, the doubling is actually in the design on the die. This form of doubling, the die is normal. The coin gets struck by that normal die more than once, causing this faint appearance of doubling. You have a die that actually has doubling in it, or you have a coin that has a bounce on the die that creates a second image. Of course, you can see how the double die is actually a lot more scarce and has more value, and the machine doubling is kind of just a sign of a faulty machine. Faulty machine. Faulty. That looks like a class. Oh, it's a slight class 6 double here, so we may have some of the signs of a class 6 double die, and we do. You see this little curve right up here on the top of the T, that little teardrop right there. You see how thick the bottom of the U is here. I see how thick the S is here, and how round that stem of the R is. Oh, you can't see that part yet. Here we go. The stem of the R is nice and round, that diagonal. You have some curve in the upper part of the E up here. Let's go on and look over at Liberty. see what we see there. Yeah, see these letters. All these letters have just a little bit of that taffy pull corner on the outside edge of the letter, and it's not a very late die state, and it does have just a little bit of extra thickness, so that tells me it's a minor class 6 double die. Whether it's listable is going to be a matter of debate once we take a much closer look at the coin and compare it to other ones that were listed and to ones that were not listed. We'll make that determination at that time. If this is not already listed, it may not cut the mustard to make it a new listing either. Hello, Carl. But this one's Richard's. I'm going to pull this one off to the side just in case. That's coin number 11. Now coin number 12. Coin number 12 goes to Deanne. And Deanne. Nothing on the mint mark. Date appears normal. The eye is normal. Normal motto. Normal liberty. And I've seen the reverse of this die before. So, we shall continue. Number 13 now, Frostbite. Let's see what Frosty gets. Where is the coin? Right here. Well, no RPM. Some machine doubling in the upper part of the design. And I flip it over here on the reverse and see. Very late die state. It struck through right there. And very late die state. Difficult to see anything that would be doubling on that. It's kind of like taking a camera totally out of focus. You can't see the finer details if it's not in focus. And as a die ages, it kind of takes the focus away from the fine details that sometimes are, I'm not going to say necessary, but very helpful in determining a double die. Because a lot of the ones that once you get to the later die states, you can't see the doubling, we don't list. Because we kind of have a consortium, a consortium figure that if a BU coin is going to wear die wear to the point where you won't be able to see the die variety anymore after you get to the late die state, then there's really no point in listing it to begin with because it was probably too minor to be listed. This is one of those things where there are a lot more proofs in certain years, a lot more proof double dies listed than there are mint state double dies, because the mint state double dies, as minor as some of the proof double dies get, would be too minor to list because they won't show up in later die state. Nice little spiked head die crack there on that 1940 4D. Yep, makes it very challenging with worn dies. It makes it very challenging to identify a number of the double dies and repunchment marks. I can imagine with worn coins it can be difficult too. But definitely once the dies start to wear out and the design becomes very mushy, it just takes away from the efficacy of determining different dies by their attributes alone. You end up having to go to markers just to identify them, and that makes the hobby not quite as fun as it would have been otherwise. So we try to keep it on the fun side by keeping things listed that are a little more interesting, a little more visible. And we're kind of showing a lot of the same different kinds of stuff here. In fact, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more so that we get more of an overall picture of what we're looking at on these, because that will help us in getting through the normal coins in this roll a little bit faster. I haven't been finding double dies, or for that matter RPMs, in this roll, except for a couple of possible class 6 double die obverses, which we could see just as well at this magnification. Sometimes zooming out is all you need to make things so much easier on yourself. That's why being able to zoom like I do, and zoom out and zoom in, that's called, on a stereoscope, on a micro stereoscope, it's called infinite zoom. You always want to look for that when you're going to buy a microscope. I'm not talking about an electronic toy microscope. I'm talking about a real laboratory microscope. If you're going to buy a microscope, buy one that has infinite zoom. The alternative to the infinite zoom is that you can look at things at either 5x, 10x, and 20x, or 10, 20, and 30x. Those work, not as well as infinite zoom. Infinite zoom, my microscope, has the magnification of 0.7x to 3.5x. So it's 70% of actual size up to 350% of actual size. And with that, you can put a 10x eyepiece on there. And with a 10x eyepiece, you're multiplying it by 10 times, so you get 7x to 35x. And that's generally wide field 10x eyepieces are what people use on coins. And then what you're going to end up with is a 7 times to 35 times view. On the next coin, I will zoom it all the way out and zoom it all the way in to show you the differences. Paul Hampton. So this is the coin, and the coin at 7.5x all the way out is right here. That's as far zoomed out as I can get the coin. I can almost fit the whole coin inside of my scope aperture. But now I'll show you what it looks like. I'll try to put this D right in the center. And I'll show you what it looks like when you go up to 35x. This is 35x. Now, because of the focal length and the amount of light getting through the scope, you actually have to turn your light up to see the same things at a higher magnification. So when I back out, it gets too bright and I have to lower the light again. And this, the focus is going to change too, because the focal length is different. But that's infinite zoom for you. All right. Keep moving around this coin to see what we see. I plan on teaching you boys and girls everything I know about what I know during these shows, because you are here paying attention. Perfect time to teach is when you have students there who are quiet and attentive. And you have no choice but to be quiet here because, well, you can't make noise in my stream. And I have no choice but to assume you're paying attention, because I can't see what you're actually looking at if you're not watching the show. So I assume it's a good environment to teach. And I enjoy teaching, especially about things that which I know, as in coins. I don't know that much about magnification or microscopes. And I would kind of have to doubt the Class 6 1927. I don't know of any. I would have to doubt it unless I were able to investigate a little bit and actually see it. If I saw a picture of it, I could tell you right away whether you have a Class 6 or if you just have something that's a little flattered because of wear or otherwise. What condition is the coin in? Yeah, see, Kelly, you don't talk at all in my stream. And maybe that's why they did it. So loudmouths wouldn't have a chance to break up streams. But on the stream, I'm the only person I can hear. It's a little awkward at first, and then you just kind of get used to it. Like, well, nobody's going to interrupt me doing this. I used to teach college courses. Dude, that one's got a big fingerprint. Huge Larry all over it. I used to teach college courses. And I did them in lab college courses. I taught programming and some other things, computer programming and otherwise. But on a really regular basis, on a very regular basis, actually, I would be talking about something. Somebody would have a question. It would be the very next thing I was going to talk about. And so I'd answer the question by continuing the lecture, and then they would ask another question. And finally, during a break, I would say, "Hey, I'm glad that you're, really attentive and you're really into the subject of the class. But if you allow me to continue the paragraph that I'm on, I may answer some of your questions before you have a chance to ask them." Oh, okay. So let's just have an agreement where I'll try to be as attentive to you as I can and get your needs met as much as I can, but at the same time, let me go ahead and get through what I'm doing to see if maybe that answers your question. If it doesn't, then I'll most certainly take all the time you need to teach you one-on-one what you're asking about that is not taught in the class. He had a few real valid points, real valid questions, and I, of course, took the time to answer them, and then I recapped them during the next session because, well, of course, kind of makes sense. Yeah, you can't send pictures in this either. But you can send pictures to my email address if somebody wants to put it up on screen. cd@coppercoins.com. cd@coppercoins.com. Yeah, when somebody starts talking about something they don't know anything about, what amuses me the most are the ones who, they'll blabbity blab blab blab, and then I'll say, no, that's not correct. I said, well, I found it on Copper Coins. I would say, well, where did you find it on Copper Coins? Well, it's on this page and this page. And so I go and I look at the page. I come back and I say, no, actually the opposite of what you say is true. It says exactly the opposite of what you're trying to convey. Well, what kind of idiot are you? I don't know. I'm just the idiot who wrote Copper Coins. Oh. And so sometimes they just they get embarrassed and they just kind of stomp off in their own direction, and then sometimes they'll actually say, "Oh, really? Well, I have a few more questions then." Yeah, sure, go ahead. That's what I wrote it for, is for people to learn. I didn't write it for people to use my website to counter-argue the truth by misreading what I put out. It makes things a little hard, more difficult. What course did I teach? I taught at Missouri State University Extension downtown. I taught PHP programming. I taught Perl programming. I taught, what else did I teach? JavaScript, JavaScript 1 and JavaScript 2. I taught Dreamweaver application for staff members. There's a few other things I can't remember right now. I was I did VB backend code for Microsoft Excel. I also taught the standards of VB and the black box technology that VB and ASPX used. And I was a Microsoft certified trainer. Not very many people are CTT qualified. Certified technical trainer. Oh, the difference of the twos on large and small date. Well, that's one of the easy ways. The other easy way is just to look at the coin. I mean, all of the lettering all the way around is a lot thicker on the large date than it is on the small date. The small date, they made all of the lettering all the way around thinner, sharper, easier to read, less, less childish looking. Why did I leave programming? Because it became a headache to keep up with it, to keep up with the security and things, and I really didn't enjoy dealing with like installing and uninstalling languages and Apache and all that other stuff on servers. I just wasn't. I wasn't as much just a server software person as I was a logic programmer. I just wanted to sit and do the logic programming part. And I kind of bounced out of that world because I was offered a job as a marketing person doing advertising design and marketing design for a rather large coin company, and it was something that was a fresh change. It was different. It was something that I thought I would really enjoy doing. So there's another one of those. It appears to be a minor Class 6 double die. So I'll lay it with the others. This one's going to go to Miss Fletcher. I don't know. If the audio is intermittent, it might be you. I don't know. Somebody tell him. Do you have good, clear audio from me? There's one for Taco John. I just burned out on it. I didn't really like it. It wasn't really ever what I wanted to do for a living. Really, the only thing I actually did code for or programming for was to do problem solving and data display for coins anyway. Okay, Calipigian, it must be on your end, because everybody else has me nice and loud and clear. Thank you for that. But I kind of got tired of. I got tired of dealing with getting into somebody else's 70 chapters in one sentence of code, and having to read through nested things after nested thing after nested thing, which points to this very sublime method over here that calls another method somewhere else that uses either global or local variables that you have to figure out, and you're trying to find the solution as to why this, that, and the other doesn't work, and you're pulling and piecing everything together, writing it down on index cards, trying to put everything in basically like baseball card order, trying to figure out the flow of things. And after 9.5 hours of plugging away at testing and iterating and trying to figure out what's wrong with the code, you find the one place where there was a semicolon instead of a colon, that everything else had been written perfectly. So I I decided that was no longer my gig. Nothing that I wanted to do. You basically take computers that are only as smart as the people who are coding them. So you take this big, long train of code, and either it works or it doesn't. There's no in between. It can't work halfway. It's not like a car. You're going to turn the car on, and because there's something wrong with the cooling system, it's going to overheat. Or because there's something wrong with the fuel system, it's going to sputter. But it's still going to run, and you'll figure out what the other problems are by symptomatically checking it and treating the symptoms until you find the cure of the problem. Well, in computer code, you generally don't get that. In computer code, you're generally going to get something that will work or it will not work. and it's not going to exactly tell you why it does not work, especially in PHP. ASPX tends to have errors that are more or less decipherable, whereas PHP generally doesn't give you good error codes at all. It works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, it is on you to figure out why it doesn't work. That can take hours and hours and hours to figure out. And maybe it is an older generation thing, and the newer generation of computers and the newer generation of code writing could be a lot better, a lot more fun, a lot easier. But in my generation, I was, post machine language numbers and dashes and commas and stuff, but I was still in the era where a person did basically everything. My general code editor of choice was like Notepad, just a very basic text editor. So I figure if you can't write it using a text editor, you shouldn't be trying to do it using something like Dreamweaver, because if you don't understand what the code does, a WYSIWYG isn't really going to get you there, because the WYSIWYG is going to throw things in the wrong place, or you're going to confound something by something that's already been confounded by something you confounded, and before you know it, you're trying to display one simple block of code on the screen, and it has written 37 blocks of code that is nested 14 times because of you and your cursor moving things around. You don't understand the code, you don't know what you're reading or looking at, and you end up allocating 10 times the memory that you need and 17,000 times the processor that you need, and you end up using the same amount of processing to put hello world on the screen as it would normally take for someone to solve the relativity problem. So that's called obfuscation. Somebody throws a bunch of extra crap in a code to make it do something, and instead of fixing problems, they're developing something new to add to broken code to make it seem unbroken, and they keep adding more and more to it to make it seem unbroken. It's like using glue on a vase. It depends on how many bits and pieces you're gluing together, but you could use bottles and bottles of glue to put one vase back together, and it still won't hold water. Eric, I always found that, with this is one of our little minor class 6 double dice here, little bit of extra thickness on the 9 and on the 4s. We're going to find it up in Trust and in We and on around to Liberty. Very minor, but it, I believe, is a class 6. This one belongs to Eric, so Eric will be able to study his own coin. Calipigeon. I'm down to a point now with code where I don't really even have enough patience to sit and write code to figure out how to do relatively simple things. I have forgotten more than I ever learned, and that's kind of dangerous because I know virtually nothing now where it comes to doing web development. I developed Coppercoins using Notepad from the ground up, believe it or not. I wrote the entire thing, every method, everything, every database call, every sort, every array, everything that you get when you go through Coppercoins. I wrote all of it by hand. There are definite pluses and definite minuses to that. It can do exactly what you want it to do if you know how to do it. But the definite minus to that is that nobody else can really work on it without going all the way through it and learning everything about it, because Well, it's kind of written in my own code shorthand. Everybody kind of develops their own shorthand as they're learning how to write code. The entire thing is written in PHP backed by a MySQL database. So I do understand all of the basic concepts of that. I took programming in college, but the programming I took was C++ and Java and Visual Basic and Microsoft Visual Basic, ASP and ASPX, JavaScript, things like that. I did not take PHP in school because PHP was still too new, and it's not a compiled language anyway, so it's not considered a programming language. It's considered a code language, which is a little bit different from programming. And so my study, oh, look at that. The S is gone because of a struck through. That's kind of cool. So it's in God we trust. Not finding any die varieties here, though. We've got a couple of little minor class 6 double die obverses that may or may not be listable, but we're not finding like 44D over S number 1 13 times in the roll. That's the kind of stuff dreams are made of. So yeah, there was a point in time in my life where I actually wanted to get into software engineering and blah blah blah, and it just got tiring. It got to where I got tired of hunting for dots. I got tired of reading through pages and pages of code to find one little flaw. I knew at one point in time back when it was DOS how to write batch commands, but I don't do batch commands anymore. It's probably pretty simple now, but I don't know how to do it. There's so much out there on like Stack Overflow and other websites like that, Bootstrap and all kinds of other things that you can actually find anything you want already written for you. All you have to do is learn how to implement it and know how to connect it with what you've already got, and you can probably build a pretty mondo website without a whole lot of effort, because somewhere out there there's already been everything that you need written for you already. Not many people can do DOS. That's correct. DOS has gotten too old. The last release of DOS was in Windows 95, or was that Windows 98? Either way, it's over 25 years old. We're just about to finish a, well, sort of dud 1944D roll. Not as exciting as I really had expected it to be, but I expect way too much. I want every roll I go through for you guys to be perfect and beautiful and wonderful and have all kinds of die varieties in it, have all kinds of value in it, but man, it doesn't always turn out that way. Maybe that's what makes that stuff valuable. It's really hard to find, and we're not going to get one in every roll. If we got something really nice in every roll I went through, you might want to question what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what my motive is. Because if I was a not so honest person with much lower integrity set than I do have, I would be rifling through every single roll before I opened them for you guys, so that I would know every coin in every roll and know where I'm going to miss something, know stuff I'm going to list, stuff I'm not going to list. I would know where all the major stuff is and or pull it out like some people would. But I swear to you, when I'm going through these rolls with you people, I am learning coins just like you guys are. I'm learning the coins in every individual roll for the first time ever when I'm going through them with you. I am finding double dice, repunchment marks, or what else we find in these rolls for the very first time with you, because I have only for the tubed rolls. There's another one of our minor class 6s right there. Only for our tubed rolls do I open them up just enough to leave some coins out, take a look at them, and see if they're heavily spotted. If they're not heavily spotted, they go into the roll box for reveals. The many OBW rolls that I've done, I only see the end coins. That's it. I don't see anything else. I determine by the batch of rolls that I got whether or not I believe the roll that I'm going to open is an original roll, or if it's been monkeyed with rolls. I do them as plastic tube rolls, or I don't do them at all. Generally, I don't do them at all. If they've been monkeyed with, I mean, something's been pulled out of value, and I don't want that to happen. So I just like for the entire process to be a total discovery for me as well as it is for you. There's one for Carl. That's 47. We have 4 coins remaining. This is one of the 4 coins we have remaining, and we will move on to our third roll of the evening. I do not remember what the third roll was right now. I believe it's a 1956D. I think it's a 56D, which means tomorrow we'll have a 1972 original bank wrapped roll and a 1942D, which could be very exciting. 1942D is a very commonly overlooked date for value. Some nice stuff in it. Very late die state there for Mickey. Eric Tyler found a 1936... Well, never mind. Go ahead, Tyler. Tell Eric what you found. That looks like another one of our minor class 6 double die obverses. And it just may be. I haven't bothered finding one particular marker that I'm using on these. I'm kind of using the thickness of the 9-digit and the date to make my determination as to whether or not we actually have one of those. This is also one of them. I don't know that we've only got one die we're dealing with here. It could be more than one. That's the last coin in the roll. It's for Taco John. Decent looking coin, except on the obverse we have a spot or two because that was the part that was facing the outward part of the roll when it was wrapped. And so we have a half dozen or so coins that have what could be a minor double die obverse. Give me about 5 to 10 minutes to rest my laurels for a moment, and then I will come back for the remaining roll of the evening. We have one left. Once we get done with that one, we will have a grand total of 2 reveals remaining that will come up tomorrow. And then we will, of course, get to the singles pool tomorrow afternoon, evening. So I'll talk to you guys in just a few minutes when we come back. And until then, take care of yourself. Find the new reveal. It's going to be reveal number 552. Hit the like button in here before you leave. Don't forget to do that. And subscribe and show your love if you have not yet subscribed to the channel. I think most of you are. But just in case you're out there listening and you haven't subscribed yet, I could do that too. Hey, Penny Saver Cash, Roy Johnson. Nice. Nice. Okay. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys in just a few minutes.